Hi guys, welcome to Transplants podcast After Dark,
where we're coming to you after dark
at the nighttime.
Yeah, this is a new thing that we're gonna do, where it got a little weird tonight.
Talked about hiking trails. Talked about making candles.
Bears,
tigers.
Yeah, we did.
Lions, tigers, and bears.
I think we talked about all of those. We also talked about astrology. We went there.
Yeah, things got a little weird. Hope you guys enjoy. Hi, I'm Kellen.
And hey, I'm Beau.
And you're listening to the Transplants podcast.
You know, like, oh, you made it to India instead, or whatever, I'll just walk, you know?
Once you're in that spaceship, you're not coming back.
Have you ever, or when you were younger, did you ever get delusional?
We potentially could be the people who are doing the work to terraform these planets. I can't really tell you a story that's going to be meaningful or interesting anyway.
Right. Is it Wednesday? Because if it's not Wednesday, you go in the fucking basement.
All right, sending it for the boys. Recording Transplants After Dark. Welcome.
You came in hot.
Yeah, I'm a little excited. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I expected more like Transplants After Dark. Like you're listening to the Transplants After Dark.
It's like the normal Transplants, but at night.
We're gonna tell scary stories. We're actually sitting around some candles right now.
Yeah, it's almost like a campfire, but budget and also safe for indoors, which is nice. That we could just burn this coffee table. We could probably get a pretty good.
We'd lose a lot of equipment that way, and probably the deposit.
Yeah, that's probably true.
So the first episode went down, and here we are the next evening.
Yeah, we're so excited to talk to you guys that we just decided we got to get right back in the studio.
I'm not even necessarily excited to talk to you guys. I'm just excited to hear my voice again.
We're learning a lot about your personality here in these first two episodes. Bo.
Yeah, I know it. It was apparent in the first one. If it wasn't, it will be on this one for sure. So what do you got for me today?
Like I said before the podcast, I don't really have shit to say. And like our intro says, I'm not going to be able to tell a story that's interesting or meaningful to anybody.
In any way.
Yeah.
Well, but Sober October. For some of you, it's Sober October. For others, it's just regular October.
Some of you are just blazing like there's no tomorrow.
For those of you
wishing I was there with you.
Oh yeah. But for those of you who don't know what Sober October is, it was a thing started by the Joe Rogan podcast.
And now it's been co-opted by many governments. I know that the UK government is fully behind Sober October.
Really?
Yeah, if you look up Sober October, most of the information that you're going to find on Google is actually stuff from the United Kingdom government.
Wow,
trying to encourage people to go sober for October.
Wow, what a weird month to do that for, though. You think with Oktoberfest, which really is in September anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know that's always really misleading about it. It
also,
took me a long time to
should be the 8th month, shouldn't it?
Potentially, I don't know how the naming conventions of the months work, because then wouldn't September be the 7th month?
I thought it would be the 9th.
Is Sept 9?
To be honest, I don't know, but Des makes sense for 10, and it's the 12th, like December. But the Julian
and November
calendar,
is like November. Nov has to be like a 9, right?
Nov would be 9.
So does it just count Sept, Oct, Nov, Des? It goes straight 7, 8, 9, 10 if our logic holds.
What I do know is that it was the Julian calendar, which was or Julian, one of those. It was
definitely not the Jillian calendar.
Julian calendar.
Women didn't have that high of a status
not back then.
Yeah, they weren't allowed to
Roman
make calendars.
It was Greco-Roman or Roman, but it only had a few months less, maybe 1 month less in the year, or the 13th month. Maybe it had 13, but in that way, there was. I think that's where the names kind of originate from, and I think October was the 8th month, and that's where Oktoberfest perhaps comes from. Here's what I do know: that Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Do you know that one? Come from
I know that
they come from
days?
Yeah, right. They come from the Julian calendar, whereas so there's Greco-Roman in this time where Saturn Day, Sun Day, and Moon Day. So they were worshiping those planets and those celestial orbs And that's how those days came about.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think we should change it all. I
would love a change up. We should get rid of Wednesday.
You think we should just have like a 6-day week? Let's just cut out the weekend.
A 6-day week would be great because then there wouldn't be a middle of the week.
That's true. You wouldn't have hump day though.
You wouldn't. You'd have hump Tuesday night and hump Thursday morning. And then you'd be tired from all that humping, so you just relax on Friday. I'm not really sure about that, but I don't know. Would you want to change it up?
I mean, I guess I'm indifferent really to how the days go, but like, I mean, if we get rid of Monday, I mean, no one likes Mondays. I'm an absolute Garfield of myself in this regard.
Are you though? I mean, I guess school and work make Monday not a very good day.
Yeah, but then we're just pushing Monday off into Tuesday. And why do you want to ruin a perfectly
and then you just
good
ruin
Tuesday?
Exactly. Yeah. I agree. Do not jump on there, please, Scoosh. My cat is also in the studio with us.
Our Transplants mascot.
She could be.
Yeah, maybe one day she'll make it on camera.
She only speaks Russian, though, so we might have to have subtitles when we do finally film. I think that would be nice. Хорошо, Skushki. So when you're not in school or working, Monday is arbitrary. The sun goes up and down. It doesn't make a difference.
That's true.
So do we really need to even have any days?
Yeah, let's get rid of the calendar fully.
Yeah,
I think we should just go back to, we should just look at what the sun and the moon are doing and base things off of that, I think.
So that would kind of be a calendar.
Nah.
Not at all.
We just don't keep track of it. We just say, oh, it's daytime.
Have you ever tracked the lunar modes and done anything for it? Like a oh shoot, what's the name of that thing? Nah.
Are you talking about keeping track like the equinoxes and the solstice, the solstice?
Yeah, that's part of it. But there's a farming technique.
I don't know much about that, but I do know that when I worked at Harvest House Farm, we had to plant the potatoes on the full moon.
Really?
Yeah. But
what's that for?
I think just because Lori's kind of a hippie lady.
Really?
But yeah, I remember her saying, like, I was like, all right, we're going to do these potatoes. And she's like, no, come back tonight, plant the potatoes under the full moon.
Really?
I was like, okay.
Just kind of shout out to Lori though.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. I love that.
I like that. There is a actual word for it and I'm totally blanking. I should look it up. But we did it when I worked at an essential oil company, Rare Earth, that we could market our oils as this name where it goes with the, it's like more holistic. It's not just like organic or something like that, but you actually harvest in lunar cycles and stuff like that. It's totally blanking. I'm going to look it up.
I really like the idea of these things. I think that there's it like feels nice. It feels good to be like on the cycle of the earth, but I don't think that these things actually make a difference. Like if you're going to say it's like organic and you could sell it for a higher price because you did it on the lunar calendar, I'm not paying more for something that was done under the full moon.
You're not going to pay
seems like
more
marketing
for that?
techniques. No.
Yeah.
And what were you selling? You were working for an oil company?
Yeah, we sold. Well, we started out as a candle company,
okay.
But then this word is really driving me nuts. I got to find this before I can say anything else. But essentially, we made candles with essential oils, and then we moved on to just selling the essential oils.
Okay, so I thought you were talking like oil, like pump it from the ground. I was like,
oh no. That's actually how regular candles are made. The sweet fragrance of southern Florida or like mom's apple pie is just petroleum synthesized to smell like that, and it's one of the most harmful indoor pollutants, and it's one of the number one indoor cancer causing pollutants.
Is scented candles?
Because of the phthalates in the candles, in those scented Yankee candles. So if you are out there with your candles, the candles we lit right here, they're soy candles, and they're non-scented. But you can get essential oil scented candles. Have you ever seen like black soot on the roof or on like the overhang of where you had the candle? That if you have, and you can like wipe it with your finger, that's the petroleum residue. And with a soy candle, it doesn't leave any residue.
You've got me really fearing for my life here, Beau. I go through like a scented candle a month with how many like baths I take.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's terrible. You should actually look up rareessence.com. That's the company I worked for. They sell candles, soy-based candles with cotton wicks and essential oil scenting exclusively. They don't make anything, but...
This sounds like a fun job to be in. Sounds very rustic. Were you dipping the candles by hand?
It was unbelievable. I was a chandler.
Is that someone who makes candles?
You bet it is. Let me tell you about it. Back in the day, candles were made with tallow, which is fat from an animal, which smells like absolute ass if you've ever smelled like deer fat. So what would happen is they would take all these animal fats and they would gather them together and put them in a big pot. And the chandler was like a traveler, and he'd come around from town to town, and he would gather up all of the fat, put it into a big pot and boil it.
Is this just a communal tub of fat? Everybody's throwing in like, I've been processing my cow. Here's some fat. My dog died. Here's some fat. Like my grandma just got liposuction. Here's some fat.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything goes in the pot. Render it down, and then the dude comes and deals with all the gross smelling shit nobody wanted to deal with. Is that the idea?
I think of those three, probably not the dog, but grandma's liposuction definitely
made it in there.
I don't know the exact, and maybe it was different from one to one, but from town to town rather. But the story goes that the chandler would come, take all the fat. Maybe he had his own fat, but he probably didn't walk around with lard. That's heavy.
Yeah.
Boil it up, make candles, and that's the old school candles that you see, those stick candles that they would put out with those cool little things that look like the bell.
Nunchuck style.
No, they
ones.
What? What is that? What are you talking about?
Because you've got a long string that you use for the wick, and you dip one side a bunch, then you still got a bunch of wick, and so you dip the other side.
Oh, the candle itself. I'm talking about the candle dowser, the little bell-looking thing.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
long
about.
stick. But yes, we're both correct because it was those pillar candles. That's what they're called, pillar candles that you'd put in there. But they smelled terrible. So then, as Yankee came along and all those other things, they just synthesized petroleum, put it in there. It's literally the bottom of the petroleum truck that comes and drops off diesel engine. There's a thick sludge at the bottom, and they scrape that out, put it into buckets, and it's black. So then they put it through some sort of synthesis to make it white, and then they take even more of that out, synthesize it to get the scent notes. So if you're smelling anything that isn't natural, now here's another thing too. Essential oils, you can't have apple essential oil or pomegranate or things like that. They don't.
Or pumpkin spice.
Pumpkin spice latte. They don't. That's not an essential oil. You can only have essential oils from things that are herbs and that can be pressed or distilled. So you can have lime peel, you can have that, but you can't have key lime pie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So be really cautious. If you feel like you could grow it in your garden, then you could burn it. But you should pay more attention. The company again is Rare Essence. You should look them up. They're back in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Great company, fantastic owners.
Chill.
I love it.
Chill.
So I was a chandler. So then after that, I just kind of worked my way up in the company and made, whole bunch of different things.
But so what's the process like in the 21st century? Because you're obviously not dipping it into
we didn't do
vat
pillar
of
candles.
tallow.
We did the I can't remember what they're called, but we did molds. So we'd get these aluminum molds, and then we'd fill the mold. So you'd take the wax, which is a soy-based wax, which I don't know how they get that, but it's from the fat of a soybean, and it burns at a very low temperature. So then you make the wax melt, pour it into the mold. We had a proprietary, probably ingredients and things, and then here's another thing is you can't have any more than like 6% essential oils, or that candle will go up in flames.
Just
the whole thing.
explode.
So one time, actually, funny story. So anyway, we take the molds, fill them, and then when they're upside down, essentially, and then when they harden, you flip them over and you clap them out on the table and you pull them out, and there's your candle. Later on, you drill a hole in them, stick a wick up through the bottom, and then like melt the bottom. So it just kind of all sticks together, and that's it.
Were you guys just doing traditional wicks, or do you ever do the wood wicks? Have you ever seen those?
We tried everything under the sun.
Those wood wick candles are so nice.
Another bad thing about some of those Yankee candles is they have a zinc core or sometimes a lead core. So you're burning metal. Yeah, you're burning metal particulates that go up in the air. Nobody took me seriously when I worked there. I'd tell people this all the time. I was like, hey, you really shouldn't be burning that. They're like, it's just something that it's like, I don't really care. I'd literally give people free candles, and I'd come back months later and it's just sitting up on the top. They never even touched it.
I got this weird ass hippie candle Beau gave me.
Yeah, right. Look at that crap. So one
scented.
time I would, which I wasn't supposed to do, I definitely would never sell it, but you'd have a little bit of residue. We used to make these candles by hand. Then we got a machine to like pour them. So it was much more efficient. But back in the day, we'd stir it up in a little pot, little titanium pot, stainless steel or something like that, and pour each one, like hundreds of candles by hand. And you have to look at eye level. It was I had some steady hands by the end of it, but you'd have a little bit of residue in the bottom. So I would always pour that into one, and then I'd have residue and I'd pour that on the other one. It was just a bunch of conglomeration of different scents and different percentages of oil.
Yeah.
And me and my buddy, when we lived out in Chanhassen, we lit that candle once, not even thinking, and we're talking. All of a sudden, I was looking away from it, and the whole room got really bright. I turned around, and the whole candle was on fire, and I didn't know what to do, so I just grabbed it with my hands and like threw it on the floor to kind of like put it out. And then the oil had spilled all over my hands, so I had oil on my hand, and my whole hand was on fire. So I had to like douse my hand, and it was a really bad experience. So
candles will get you. Like,
oh yeah.
I remember one time, me and my buddies, when we were in high school, we tried to make a tree. I mean, we didn't try. We succeeded in making a tree house. What we didn't succeed in doing was we thought, oh, like this is kind of how we got into like bushcraft and being in nature. But we saw all this sap like hanging down from the trees, and we were like, oh, let's harvest all this sap and see if we can make a candle out of all this extra sap. So we like went out and we had like our knives and our axes, and we were like hacking, we were scoring these trees to try and get as much sap out of them as we could. And we'd come back like 2 days later, and there'd be all this sap, and we'd scrape it all into a big gallon Ziploc bag. And we had like half a Coke can, and we poured all this sap in the Coke can and started melting it down. So we had half of a Coke can just full of just melted sap. And I remember we put a pine needle in the top of it, thinking that would work as a wick. We had no idea how candles worked. We just really wanted to get natural with it, really connect to our roots. But I remember we lit it, and it wasn't going, because obviously it was a pine needle, and we were just holding the lighter to it. And I remember the sap eventually caught fire, and the whole candle went up. It was just the whole top was just a burning, spitting, just ball of wet sap. And so sap's flying all over the place, and none of us expected this to happen. And we're all like 14, and we're just dumbstruck. We have no idea how to deal with this fire. And so we're sitting there just dumbstruck. And I remember I grab a 2x4, I just slammed the 2x4 down on top of it in just a panic trying to turn it off. But yeah, when those candles go off, it's like you don't know what to do. Like, I like you taking the candle and just throwing it on the ground.
Well, when you work in a candle factory, we had like 9 extinguishers at home, just because we were in the research and development department. So we had candles, we had 400 candles going, and in a night, we didn't even have the heat on in the winter. We had so many candles going in there. And so you just kind of you're working around fire every day. You damn well know how to put fire out.
It sounds like you didn't though. You threw it on the ground and
it's always
caught on fire.
Yeah, it's good in theory. It's always good, never in practice, so, but yeah, so that's a lesson to all of the listeners and to you to kind of avoid that while you're taking your bath, enjoying your little evening as you're just breathing in cancer, So what are you thinking about when you're laying there in your bath? You're just enjoying
it depends what time of day it is. I usually take 2 baths a day.
Wow.
Yeah, because Stadium View, man, I don't pay for utilities unless it goes over a certain amount. So
That's right.
I'm trying to get as much out of this utilities as I can.
Yeah, just reap it.
Yeah, 2 baths a day for sure.
So you take like one after another, just drain the whole thing, get back in.
Yeah, I wait for the water to cool off, and then I drain it all. And then once the hot water has refilled, then I refill the bath with the fresh hot water.
That's what I thought.
Just to make sure that none of my roommates can ever take a satisfying shower. Mm-hmm. No, but usually I'll take one when I wake up in the morning, and I'll read for like an hour. And then usually to calm down at night, I usually take another bath and I just try and meditate. I just turn the candles on, do some fancy like mudra with my hands.
Really?
And just try and...
What time do you get up in the morning?
I get up at like 6:30 in the morning.
Every day?
Yeah, I have a hard time sleeping and it just doesn't work for me.
At all?
Nah, I just don't. I just always wake up early and then I'm sitting there and I'm not the type of person to wake up and try and go back to bed. Like if the sun's up, I'm right there with it.
Has this been the case for your entire life?
Yeah, I've always been a morning person.
What time do you go to bed? Early?
Yeah, I usually go to bed around 9 o'clock.
So you are still getting a fairly good sleep.
Yeah. Not during the beginning of sober October, I wasn't getting a lot of sleep, but now that I've settled back into it, I'm getting the best sleep of my life for sure. But still on the exact same schedule, like 9 o'clock, 6 o'clock.
And that on October 1st was actually difficult for you?
Yeah, it took me about like 6 days to get like a full night's sleep. I was getting like 3 hours a night for the first week, just feeling super, super antsy and irritable in classes. I remember going to my yoga class pissed off and leaving pissed off. Yeah.
Wow. Leaving pissed off?
Yeah, I was because I just hadn't slept. I just wasn't functioning as a human being.
Did you find it easier to wake up in the morning after that 6th day?
I mean, I never have a hard time waking up.
Really? That's okay.
When I get up, I throw my covers off and I get out of bed. I don't lay in bed.
I envy you. That's the one thing I think is I can give up drugs and alcohol and Instagram and all sorts of things. One of the things I have the most difficult time with is getting out of bed in the morning. I just love my sleep.
One of the things that really helped me really solidify that I'm getting out of bed right now is last year when I was working a lot cleaning and I had to go clean security title at 4 a.m. because they'd open at 7 and it took me 2 hours to clean that building. When my alarm went off at 4, I knew I didn't have any time. So it was like, okay, it's 4, I'm on the clock, I'm going to work. And so doing that for a full year, I just can't stay in bed anymore. My body isn't programmed to do that. So if you really want to get up in the morning, get a job that makes you get up at 4 a.m.
I guess so. I don't want to though. The one time I did get up, actually the times in my life that I did is when I was more in tune. I remember the word, it's biodynamic farming. When I was more biodynamic, which was more in sync with the world, where I was sleeping outside for months on end.
Yeah.
You just get up when the sun gets up and you go to sleep when the sun goes down. There's no reason to stay up because everything's dark and scary out there. You just need to go to bed.
And what time in your life was this that you were more biodynamic, Beau? When were you spending so much time sleeping out under the stars?
The first time was when I was in Africa. I want the cat to get off the counter. Scooch! Get down. She's going to sit up there and torment me because we're not paying attention to her. The first time was in Africa, and the second time was on the Appalachian Trail. So those 2 times I was just immersed in outside, pretty much living outside. And so for that, there's just no reason to stay up late.
Well, on the Appalachian Trail, I'm sure that there's also the dynamic of you're super tired, and once you get to camp, you pretty much just want to crash, right?
Yeah, definitely. It also depends on the kind of the time. Have you ever not necessarily, trying to find a good way to say this. You're like so amped about what you're doing that you've driven yourself to stay awake that when you try to go to sleep, you're just still in that mode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So often nights, it was like your legs are still twitching from 20 miles.
Yeah.
Because you're just laying there awake and you're just like,
you're still in go mode.
Yeah. And your body, after about the 3rd month, took me, some people finish in 3 months, took me 6 months. I was trying to enjoy my time around there too. After the 3rd month, your body understands how much energy it needs to consume because it knows exactly how much energy it's going to, the output. So it's interesting because it's like I didn't lose any weight on the trail. Everyone lost weight on the trail, but I ate appropriately so that I would kind of just match my calories. And so then my body was kind of taken care of. So then there was times when I would just kind of lay in bed, but as it would get dark and I would kind of fall asleep. But there were times when I would wake up 2 hours before the sun, kind of just first light pretty much. And it was cool to watch.
And also when you're out there and you're actually in the natural cycle, the bugs are starting to get up a little bit early, and there's starts to be a little bit of pre-morning commotion in the forest. And I think that once you get in tune with that and you've been in it long enough, you start to feel that, and you start to feel like, oh, I need to be up too.
100%.
Because I think that naturally that was the time when it was the best to get out and do stuff, to go hunt, you know, like first light, things are still waking up, but there's activity. It's going to be easy to find stuff. That's what the time to be awake. And I think that's probably just you clicking back into that old like primate brain, you know?
That could absolutely be true. I remember it was the crested francolins in Africa, and probably like just some morning birds here on the East Coast, where it was the birds that they'd get up and they'd just be like doing their thing full blast. It's morning, you know, and you just can't sleep through it. So you're just like, whatever.
It's time to get up.
I get up and I get up, you know. But you're right. I think totally about the hunting, because it's a little bit chillier in the morning. Things are starting to move around, and yeah, definitely. So, has there been a time when you have lived outside?
I've never lived outside. I mean, I've spent plenty of time camping in my life, but never for a real extended period of time where I was able to fully immerse myself in those cycles. Like the longest hiking or like backpacking or camping trip that I ever went on was when I did the Tahoe Rim Trail, and that was only 10 days. So at the end of that trip was really when I was starting to feel, first of all, it was when I was starting to feel like I could keep hiking. That was when my body really got into tune with it, and I was feeling like, okay, yeah, let's go do another 30 miles
at the 10th
today.
day.
Yeah. But also that was when I was really starting to feel like I was one with the land a little bit, you know. And then it was day 10, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go get a big sandwich and go lay down. I'm going to go sit in the car and totally pull myself out of it.
Yeah.
So I've never had the chance to fully attune myself like that, but
I think the full immersion for me takes a month.
I believe that.
Or a month. That's where the word month comes from.
Wow.
28 days.
Dropping all these moon facts today.
And I truly believe that 1 month is what it takes for you to be like completely, and I'm talking immersion, like you have to be out there, no excuses, not jumping into town for a little bit.
Yeah.
But for me, that's just for me. It may be different. Maybe other people, it's a week, one day, you know, it depends. But for me, in the scenarios that I've had, it's like after that, you know, the sounds of the birds, you're figuring this stuff out. Those little sounds don't scare you anymore.
Yeah.
And I truly believe, and I hope to do this someday, is host a full immersion retreat where you get people to reset and really give them the allotted time they need to do a full reset. Because some of these retreats that are only a week or 2 weeks, I still don't think they have the length that really is important to like really reset yourself.
Yeah, I'd believe that for sure.
Yeah, it's a pretty important thing. But do you have any desire to do that?
Oh, of course. One of my biggest goals, I think I'm probably not gonna get the chance to do this until after graduation, but I think that my graduation year, I definitely want to go and do the PCT. That's ultimate goals for me, especially growing up in Tahoe. The PCT runs right through there. Every backpacking trip that I really went on growing up, just starting on the PCT, you find, okay, we're going to start on the PC tree where it intersects Evetts Pass, or we're going to get on the PCT in Desolation Wilderness. So I spent so much time on these little sections of the PCT that I've got to do the whole thing.
Absolutely. Are you going to go northbound?
Yeah, for sure. Or I thought it could be kind of fun to, if I wasn't going to do the whole thing, I think it'd be fun to start in Tahoe and go south, or to start in Los Angeles and walk to Lake Tahoe. I always thought, like when I was living in Los Angeles, that was sort of just a fun idea I had. I'm like,
to walk home?
Yeah, I was like, I could just walk home. I'm just going to get on the PCT and walk home. And I always thought that'd be a fun trip.
But so you wouldn't do the full thing, you would just start in Los Angeles?
I would like to do the full thing, but I think that as a smaller goal, that would be a cool trip. But if I was going to do it, I probably would go northbound just because the southern part of the trail doesn't sound appealing. If you've put in all those miles, you want to feel like you're progressing into something beautiful, I feel like, instead of you start in the most beautiful section and then it just gets worse and more demoralizing as you go on.
That must depend also, because if you find desert or forest and mountains to be more appealing, because some people, I think, find the desert to be very alluring.
I don't think many people doing the PCT feel that way.
It's probably true, and especially because water is the most difficult in the southern section.
And when you do find water, you're finding these giant caches of hundreds of gallons that people have left out at these as trail magic, but they've just been sitting into the hot sun in these plastic containers. And it's not water you're going to get excited to drink. You're just drinking it because, oh, sweet, I can hydrate myself now.
Yeah, exactly. That, which is quite the opposite of the Appalachian Trail, where water in a fairly good year, not a drought year, is just every other step you're stepping over water. It's fairly clean.
That sounds so nice.
Yeah, but it has its...
Does it get muggy? You get lots of bugs on that trail?
It has so many... Yeah. I mean, yeah, that obviously depends, but your ability to start earlier and the length of time you are allowed on the Appalachian Trail is much longer than the CDT and the PCT, because in Georgia, I hiked through nothing but snow the entire time. Literally crossed the North Carolina border, and at the sign where it says GA and NC, the snow stopped, and it was like 80 degrees. So you can hike through colder weather for longer, but in the high Sierras and the PCT, there's like windows.
You can't even follow the trail.
You're not allowed to even. You know, you have permits and you have to get so. But I think I would definitely, if I did that, I would go northbound. I had a desire to do the Triple Crown, but after doing the AT, what I was going to say is the AT also has its downsides too, because where the PCT is going to just give you breathtaking views basically the whole time, you really only get a couple.
Really past Kennedy Meadows is when it gets breathtaking. I get, at least for me personally, the whole southern part of the PCT sounds so uninteresting to me.
Really?
I mean, when I was living in Los Angeles, the little bit of hiking that I did, it was still all on the PCT. And it's interesting once you get into the Angeles forest, just because it's something different. It's a very dry forest. The mountains aren't super intense, and it's just a different kind of mountain environment that I'm used to, and that's kind of interesting. But it's hot and it's dry, and it's just not super appealing to me.
Yeah, and where you're in some southern Georgia or pretty much anywhere on the trail, you're just looking at trees the whole time. So in the same way, it's kind of just the monotony of, yep, it's another oak tree. You know, there's another strand of maple trees until you get up into New Hampshire and some parts of Maine. You really don't get any views. I mean, there's scattered here and there, but if you're looking for scenic, I would do the other two trails. But
is the CDT finished? Is that trail fully developed at this point? I thought they were still cutting trail on that.
I'm not up to date as of now. As of when I was hiking the AT, it was not finished, which was 2017. So I don't know. I'm guessing it's still not, because there are some sections where you just have to road walk to get to the other parts. Did
you have to do much road walking when you're doing the AT?
Yeah, I can't really remember, but if I had to guess, I would say 15%, 10%. But what I was saying is that to a friend of mine the other day is that, you know, you'd be just walking next to this beautiful creek, kind of in a ravine, just gorgeous in the middle of the woods, and then you'd hear a car go by. So, and that's not for all of it. There are some pretty remote sections there, especially kind of the bookends of the trail. Mm-hmm. It's pretty remote, but there's some places in like Pennsylvania and stuff that were just like, you know, I'm crossing a highway right now. Which
it's the section of trail that you're only doing it because it's part of the trail and it gets you to where you need to be going. Mm-hmm. Nobody would hike that section for the beauty of it.
It would be like a Runyon Canyon where you're going to see a bunch of day hikers anyway. So you're like, it's not. But I'm not trying to downplay it. It was really, really difficult and really, really rewarding. So I'm really happy that I did it, and I hope that you do the PCT. I think you should.
I think there's no chance that I don't do it. It's such a huge goal for me. And like I said, spending so much time on the PCT, I've got to see the rest of it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I had some rules that I had written down. I titled them Notes from Appalachia that I had learned from the trail. and I had about like 11 of them. But one of the things is that I think every like American should be almost required to hike one of those trails. It's a very nice character building, human, faith restoring, physically challenging time in your life. And
Yeah, it's one of those things where you get to cut out all the bullshit of whatever it is you're doing and being stressed about, oh, what does Josh think about my PR report, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Like, did I pay my taxes on time? Just all the stuff that we've had imposed on us by culture. And you get to just really reconnect with what it means to just be a human being, support yourself, work hard, and just get satisfaction from just pretty much solely existing. And I think that like it's a super, super grounding experience, and it lets you remember who you are as a person instead of as a cultural being.
It's a great way to put it.
Like even on that's how I felt doing the rim trail. I was like, wow, I worry about so much stuff that, not that it doesn't matter. Obviously in my real life it matters, but it doesn't have to matter. It doesn't have to play on me that hard. It really reconnected me, I guess, with just what was important for me. And when you're hiking, you get a lot of time to think about who you are, and a lot of time to count to 10 and count to 10.
Yeah.
Count to 10.
For sure. I mean, that's the whole reason I decided to come out to school, was the trail made me decide.
Really?
All that time thinking, I was like, you know what? I've got to go to school. And I came back. I didn't apply to any other school. I just applied to Montana State, and I was like, I'm going here. I was absolutely just in my mind. I was like, I'm going to school there, and that's what's going to happen. I'm going to study that degree. I'm going to go there for that. But the Appalachian Trail is the people's trail for a reason. There's a lot of people on it.
Yeah.
It's also very community based. And
What I've heard about the Appalachian Trail is it's kind of like a big party, right?
yeah, it's kind of a traveling band of gypsies in the way that you get a lot of like like veterans, bunch of retirees, and then a bunch of haven't gone to school yet college kids. So you get a weird dichotomy. But like, hey, there was some time when it was like we totally miscalculated food. We got 15 miles. We're not going to make it that day because we'd already been hiking like 7 miles or something, and it was like get to a shelter and there's 8 to 15 other hikers there, and it's like, hey, does anybody have like a granola bar I could really use? We had like so much food we had to start giving it away again because people are so giving. I gave a guy my trekking pole because he broke both of his, and it's just like, I don't care, man, just take it. Like you become so dependent on humanity that you're like, man, I will give the shirt off my back because I would really appreciate that done for me another day. And another thing is when you hike on day hikes around here, around anywhere really, nobody looks you in the eyes. They're just doing their hike. Or you may, hey, how's it going? And then you hike past. You look like a fucking idiot when you're hiking the AT because you got a big old grin and your eyes are wide and you're like, hey, how's it going? Oh, I haven't seen, what are you doing? Like you're really excited to see people.
Yeah, and you just spent the past 20 minutes or 2 hours listening to yourself ramble in your head, and you're so excited to hear another voice and
definitely
connect with another perspective and share your experience with the trail and say, hey, is this what it's been like for you? What's your trail experience been like? And it makes you so much more appreciative of getting to be with other people. Whereas like when you're trapped in the rat race of the normal day to day, you don't want to interact with that dude on the street. You don't care about making that connection with another human entity. He's just an annoyance. Whereas on the trail, it's such a blessing to get to connect with somebody. And that's another reason why I think it's so important for people to spend time on the trail like that, because it shows you again how important it is to be with people and really try and form community with these people, Whereas if you went your whole life living in a city, working in jobs, just stuck in your own world, you wouldn't get that perspective of how valuable it is to really have other people.
100%. Another interesting thing is information only moves forward. Since the trail is a northbound trail, and that's the first people that did it, they did it northbound. Some people do southbound, but they do it at different times of year. Unless you're talking to a day hiker who they don't understand. Like there's through hikers or flip-floppers or the people who are doing long chunks of it. there's your community that you're talking about. Is like, I relate with these people because they understand the struggle that I'm going through. The day hikers, they don't understand. So since everybody's moving in one direction, information can only flow one way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting thing. The grapevine only moves north. So you don't really hear about trail information ahead if you're in the lead, or if you, from your group, or from, you know, so it's interesting how, and especially a lot of the places, if you have AT&T, I know this is true, like you have no service on the whole trail.
Yeah.
So you're really dependent on hearing information from people. I think also that removal from the technological world of instant communication is so great, because it's like, I can't just check the weather. You know, I hear rumors. Oh, it might rain. Oh, this guy said Monday, but this guy said Tuesday. Should we risk it? You know, and it's
this guy said Monday, but the guy who said Tuesday, he's blind. He really seems like he's in tune with nature.
Right.
I saw him walk up to a pine tree and touch his hands to it. And he said, "Rain's coming Tuesday." I believe that guy.
A blind man finished the trail. He hiked the whole thing through with his seeing eye dog. He broke like 15 ribs and 2 wrists and just a whole bunch of things, but he finished the trail. It's pretty spectacular. There was a paraplegic and a quadriplegic that finished the trail, and they had some of their friends carry them the whole way.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's and that's just another part of how it's just fantastic. You just have so much faith in humanity. And when I left, I came home with that big grin on my face, and I just see everyone with their furrowed brows and their frowns. And it's like, man, everyone needs to go and do a trail, or just try. And man, there were people that were like 250 pounds that finished, and they were, they lost 50 pounds or more, like it's not just for highly athletic people. It's, I would say most of it is mental, and some of it's a little bit crazy that you
have to be a little crazy to do the trail.
Absolutely.
For sure.
You have to be and a lot of it's luck, timing with weather and all that kind of stuff. But to say that, I couldn't do it because, hey man, like I can barely walk down the street. It's like, okay, start walking down the street to train, and then go and do it. Just try it. And if you don't finish, that's okay. It doesn't matter. It's one foot after another. And even if you did 1 mile, even if you did half a mile, you still try, and you still were out there to kind of experience it,
Yeah.
But I really hope that you do it. Do you have any plans for doing anything this summer, hiking around here or anywhere?
Well, my goal this summer was I wanted to take the PCT from Tahoe to Yosemite, but then the time that I was going to take off from work, Yosemite was a forest fire, so that plan kind of went south. So if fire season isn't terrible again this next summer, which it probably will be, but if I can do that, that's a trail that I still think would be a really awesome experience, because that's one of the most beautiful sections of the Sierras. And most of it, you're just on the John Muir Trail, but you don't have to get the John Muir permits, which are super, super competitive. Mm-hmm. So that'd be a cool trail to do.
I'm unfamiliar with the geography there. Would that be going south down to Yosemite?
South.
Okay, that's what I kind of thought.
And that's a really good trail because you get pretty consistent places to do food drops. There's 4 big main passes. You got Sonora Pass, and you got Ebbets Pass, and you got Carson Pass, and they're all like 35 miles apart from each other on the trail. So it's really easy to get your food drops in. I think it'd be an awesome trail. For me, for somebody who's only really done a 10-day hike is my biggest thing. That's about a 14-day hike. So I think that's a good progression for me. So if I can do that trail next summer, that's my big goal.
How long is the Tahoe Trail that you were doing, or the Tahoe Rim Trail? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Tahoe Rim Trail. It was 167 miles.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, we did it in 10 days. Most people do it in 14 to 16 days. So we definitely were busting ass on that trail, but...
And didn't you have a buddy that was like, I want to go faster? And
yeah, I had my buddy Chaz with me. Shout out to Chaz, wildland firefighter.
oh, cool.
Yeah, but he was a taskmaster on that trail. He was always at the front. He's like, he was the only person who had any sort of timekeeping instrument with him. So he was the master of breaks. And he every 2 hours, he's like, we'd sit down for 15 minutes, eat a granola bar, use the restroom, and then 15 minutes were up. He's like, all right, guys, get your stuff back on. We're going. And then we'd hike for 2 hours, and we wouldn't stop for 2 hours. And then 2 hours would come. He's like, all right, now we can break. We'd do our 15-minute break, and he kept us really on task.
That sounds like a nightmare. Was it okay for you?
It was good for me because the first couple days were hard for me because I came up from Bozeman after spending a year here in Bozeman at around 5,000 feet, and then going and doing the rim trail where you're above 7,000 feet pretty much the whole time. That first day wasn't that hard. You're cruising around like 7,000 feet, 8,000 feet almost that whole time. But then day 2, you go from 8,000 feet and you get up to 1,100 feet about at the top of Friel Peak. And so that was a really,
Whoa.
and so our first day we did 20 miles. And so my body was kind of reeling from how much we had hiked that first day. And I wasn't I didn't have my food situation all sorted yet. I had brought a big bag of gummy bears with me. And so when we got to camp that first day, we just like pigged out on gummy bears and honey buns and cosmic brownies.
Ugh.
And so I woke up that second day just feeling so sick and terrible. And then doing that climb up to 11,000 feet, I was dead. I threw up 3 times going up Friel Peak.
Because you ate all that sugar.
Yeah, it was really bad.
That sounds terrible.
I remember every step of that. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't do it." And this was when I had to stop and be like, "Chaz, I can't do it." And so I remember climbing up Friel Peak. I was leading because I could really only make it like 15 steps before I'd have to like lean on a tree and like drink a little bit of water. But I also think one of my problems that first day is I was drinking a lot of water. I just had my Camelback in my mouth that whole time, and I was just constantly sucking down water, and I didn't have much food in my stomach. So I just had all that water moving around. So day 2, I was feeling really, really sick. But then we made it to camp at Star Lake on day 2, rested. I just laid there, just crashed. And day 3, I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm just going to keep pushing. And so we pushed on from there and things got better. But I think it was also a matter of settling into the trail. But for me, yeah, that first couple days was really difficult. But once I settled in, I could keep up with Chaz, no problem.
Do you know how heavy your pack was?
Yeah, my pack was 31 pounds. It wasn't super heavy.
That's super heavy.
You think?
Oh my God, yeah. That's so heavy. People don't understand. And my
One guy that I went with, Justin, he's also a wildland firefighter. His pack was 48 pounds.
Yeah, that's
He
insane.
carried a full-size tarp with him the whole time, and he never once complained about his pack. All of us, we'd have to clip on our packs. We'd be like, "Oh, it's so heavy." And Justin just threw his pack on. He's like, "All right, let's go, guys." He was
Jesus.
just a tank that whole trip.
The heaviest mine was on the trail, I think was 45 pounds. And that was the heaviest. And you can't push 15 miles, or I certainly couldn't. And I was doing okay. But that's interesting. That 30 pounds, people don't understand. That is a considerable amount of weight. Yeah.
I mean, I've got a pretty nice pack. I've got a nice external frame pack, but it's a modern external frame, so it's just got a nice carbon fiber plate. So it's not like a big old like Kelty where it's all unwieldy. It carries the weight really well. So when you put 30 pounds in the pack that I'm using, it feels like 20 pounds. It really carries that weight well. None of it's on my shoulders, so I wasn't really too worried about the weight of my pack. Though on day 3, I did drop my tent. I was carrying a 2-person tent with a rain fly. And I remember our first food drop, I switched over to just a hammock. And that dropped my pack down to below 30, which really changed the game for sure. I was able to keep up a lot better after that.
And water's so heavy. That usually takes up a lot of the weight.
Yeah, but there's nothing you can do about that. Water is just...
It's obviously an essential.
Yeah.
The way that we did it was we freeze dried and vacuum sealed all of our food and then sent it to ourselves. So we had like prep days for probably a month. We were making food. But we were really able to cut down the weight on that and then put it in like packets so that we could just count the packets rather than like just getting a handful of Cliff Bars and be like, okay, I'll need this, this, and this, and this. We cut weight down so much that it was very efficient for us to move.
So were you eating the same stuff a lot?
Yeah, it was terrible. My mom was like, you guys are gonna get so sick of those bars. But after after probably day 2, it was all terrible.
So what were your staples for the AT?
My ex-girlfriend who hiked the trail with me, Lauren, would be very upset that I don't remember exactly because she did all the work. She was a very good cook and a very good prep. And probably I would have lost a lot more weight if she wasn't involved. And actually, I don't even know if I'd finish if she wasn't involved. So shout out to you, Lauren, if you're listening. Probably not. But one of the things is that she shot a deer was it that year or the year prior? It wasn't the year prior. So we had venison was part of that. I have a great story about that. And then lentils, rice. These are different dishes,
right.
Bases. We would use TVP, which is textured vegetable protein, I believe. And then, oh man, just like packets of hot sauce, and it was like all the add-on stuff that we'd steal from a Taco Bell or whatever when we were in town that really
just to
made
get
it better.
Some flavor.
And then we had these different bars that were like some sort of protein bar similar to
like a Cliff Bar sort of
similar
deal.
to a Cliff Bar, but it wasn't that sweet, chewy. It was, drier.
Like a Kind Bar?
No, it was in between a Kind Bar and a Cliff Bar. There were our own bars, and we had like 4 or 5 different ones, and we could see in the packaging which one they were. So we'd be like, yes, or we get a package of all the shitty ones. So we're like, God damn it. Like we would just like chuck them because they were so shitty by the end of it. And we'd just like smother them in Nutella. And my mom would send me Costco Nutella, which was like, really, I thank you for, thinking of me that way, but that's like 11 pounds of Nutella and I can't carry that all in one. So we'd have to like take handfuls and eat so that we could like, hike with it.
Yeah.
No, that's what we ate, but we learned not, and the benefit of that is I never got sick of Cliff Bars. Those were a treat when we did get them.
Yeah.
And then also I wasn't just eating honey buns and sugar and, Annie's, sweet pies or whatever. I actually was eating decent food, which made me feel really full and feel really good when I did eat it. So I was happy about that. But
yeah, when we did it, we were eating pretty much all processed foods. We were eating, our meals were packets of tuna on a tortilla and like 2 cosmic brownies, some trail mix, beef jerky, just processed food. So when I hear that you guys were getting to eat prepared meals, that sounds like a really, really great way to do it. Sounds kind of heavy.
Yeah,
but it sounds worth it.
If anybody is considering hiking any of these trails, I really, really recommend doing what we did. And her mom sent us the food in the post office has these flat rate boxes, and that's the way to do it because then it's the cheapest way to send yourself food. But in that way, what you're eating. It's guaranteed that they're going to have it, because you'd get to some of these supply depots and they would be like, we're all out of this. It's like, thank God that we have our own stuff. Now these guys got to go another 15 miles before they get that, and then you can also, she's very good with like calorie counting and what's the most efficient protein and that kind of stuff. So we were really lucky to have that. And like I said, I started the trail at 170 pounds and I finished the trail at 170 pounds. And I might be the only person that's ever hiked that trail that didn't lose a single pound. I even like couple days after I started gaining weight immediately. So it was very good in the long run.
Yeah.
So really recommend it.
When we did the Tahoe Rim Trail, we were obviously just eating crap, but our justification was, we're at such a huge calorie deficit. It doesn't matter. We can eat whatever we want. But it definitely makes a difference as to how you feel on the trail. I remember I had a couple days where I had packed like quinoa with a little bit of with a bouillon cube as my dinner. And I'd feel so much better those days where that's what I was eating for dinner instead of eating just a package of a can of tuna, or whatever.
I think about your mental health, since this is a mental game too, you want to be feeding your brain appropriately.
Yeah.
And I feel that way about anything in life. And you're right, you're on a calorie deficit. So if you're considering losing weight on the trail, you can easily do that still by eating healthy foods, because you're going to be losing calories. Like, it's very hard to shovel that stuff in sometimes. Like, the hardest thing some days was to eat because the food was so bland.
But you need the energy.
I needed it, that it was like, okay, I got like 7 more bites. Like, taking deep breaths, trying to get it in is so filling that I could have not ate and lost a lot of weight if that was my goal. I know a lot of people do it for that, and they're very proud of themselves because they do lose a considerable amount of weight. Like, you'll look good after the trail regardless,
I mean,
even if you keep the weight, you're going to shape it differently.
I mean, you look good, or you come off the trail looking like a skeleton. A lot of people,
emaciated. That's true. And those are the people that are eating honey buns, and that's it.
Yeah.
Is those people and the ramen noodles. You know, your teeth are falling out by the end of it. You don't want to be having that. And I think about, there was this woman, Grandma Gertrude, who hiked the trail. I don't know if she thru hiked it, but she just carried a sack of potatoes and ate potatoes and shot squirrels and ate those on the trail. So, you know, there's other ways to do it. I don't think you can hunt. You might be able to hunt squirrels on it. I don't think that's going to be a very efficient way to go about your hike, but that would
Sounds
be a
like
really
a good way to get a disease to me.
Dude, I heard squirrels really good. I heard it's one of the most underrated wild meats.
And I know that at least in California, you can shoot squirrels without a tag. There is a season for squirrel.
That's for a different type of squirrel. That's not for gray squirrels. There's like another type of squirrel. It's like black. It's got bigger. It's a lot bigger. I think it's called a fox squirrel. There's a season for that
in Appalachia.
Because I think that's nationwide.
Oh, we've got big like gray ground squirrels, or not. I think they're the tree squirrels, the big gray squirrels. Mm-hmm. That's what you can shoot open season.
Yeah, without a tag.
Yeah. But you don't think those taste as good?
I've heard that those fox squirrels, which I think that's what they're called, I heard they're just delectable. And people who used to do fur trapping and stuff, they would like specifically go for those things because they were so tasty and they had really good hides as well. But there's a lot of wild game that's super underrated because you think that would taste gross. I'd love to try some. I might even go out for some. Just, you know, shoot some gray squirrels. They're everywhere.
I can't imagine that it would taste bad if you're getting it from the forest where it's going to be eating. Like if you're getting it in Georgia where it's going to be eating lots of acorns and nuts.
A lot of nuts. So it's a lot of fatty fats and proteins. Yeah.
It sounds like it would be good meat, but I wouldn't want to
chicken.
I wouldn't want to eat a squirrel that's anywhere near a city though, where they just become trash monsters. Yeah.
I saw a gray squirrel eating mushrooms once, and I just thought.
And you saw him laid out on the floor 10 minutes later, just eyes wide.
No, he was.
Squirrel's having a cosmic experience.
That'd be amazing. I don't think that psilocybin can transfer in any other animals. Maybe it can. Actually, no, because they gave elephants acid and they gave cats acid and they reacted to that.
They've definitely done all sorts of experiments with dolphins and LSD.
Have they really?
Yeah, John C. Lilly, who's one of the great psychedelic pioneers, he's got all sorts of experiences with taking acid with dolphins. There was one dolphin which they had rescued. It had been hit by a boat or something, and it didn't really like when people would come near it. So like it would always stay on the far side of the tank from where the people were. And they dosed it with LSD one time, and they saw that it was being more social with the other dolphins. And then when Lily got in the tank with the dolphin swam right up and just put its muzzle like right against him and just sat and like had this like connecting bonding moment with him. And after that, the dolphin didn't have any anxiety about being around people or spending time in the tank. So I wouldn't be surprised if a squirrel could trip on mushrooms.
That sounds fantastic. My family's going to really hate me saying this right now, and I'm sorry, Nana, but I did acid 16 times on the trail, and it was very eye-opening for sure. And I had done it before,
right?
But it's talking about the sense of community for sure when you do that. And I had very lasting effects from doing it out in a natural setting where I had already been naturalized.
Yeah,
you know, so that's another thing is to do psychedelics once you've been naturalized too. It's a very different than like you know, just at home or going to the park for the day to do it. Yeah.
Because people always say you got to take psychedelics in nature, but when you're still in your old mind framework, you're not going to get the same experiences when you're now a part of nature. You're getting to experience the whole system and you're actually a part of it instead of feeling like you're on the outside kind of looking in, getting this perspective of what nature could be. Once you're actually in it, I feel like it would be so much more powerful for sure.
It's interesting too, because doing my final acid trip, I decided I needed to stop smoking weed. So that was, you know, kind of in that way therapeutic. My thought was that I'm going to go on the trail and it'll be very easy. I kind of wanted to stop smoking weed from the beginning. I was like, well, finally I'm going to be in a scenario where there's going to be no weed. Very, very
You were very wrong about that.
That was a very naive thought to think that a whole bunch of dirtbags wouldn't have everything under the sun.
Yeah.
So everything under the sun happened. And then halfway through the trail, I was like, I had that experience and I was like, this specific thing, which was weed, was the biggest killer of my potential, I would say. And that happened through an acid trip. And so I was like, okay. And the next day I gave my full eighth to the first guy I saw.
Wow.
I was just like, it's your lucky day, buddy. And he's like, you going on hiatus? And yeah, so that really prompted that whole exodus. But you usually do it outside, right?
Yeah, I've done it. I mean, I've actually never taken acid. I took
LSD 25.
Yeah, I took something on a tab, which I really doubt was acid, because I was supposed to take it on the Tahoe Rim Trail, but then when we were actually out on the trail, it just didn't feel right. We were hiking like over 20 miles every day pretty much, and so I wanted to be able to stay on that rhythm, so I didn't want to be tripping and hiking because I knew I wasn't going to be able to catch up. And then when we got to camp, like, we just wanted to eat and kind of chill out. And so we just didn't end up taking it on the trail. But the guy who had sourced it, he took a couple tabs one night, and then he dropped like 2 days after that. And so we didn't have access to it. But when we got back into town, me and my buddy were like, hey, Dylan, can we get some of that acid? Like, we gave you some cash for it, and just like the tabs. And he's like, oh yeah, you can have all of them actually. Like, and he gave us his like tabs that he had bought too. And so we were kind of like, oh, that's weird. Like, knowing Dylan, like, Dylan's going to keep all his acid.
Oh, I see.
And so we were like, okay, this might be kind of sketch. And I remember I took it that day after I got off the rim trail, and I went to the beach, and I remember just having so much nervous energy, and I didn't really get visuals so much as I just got like a sense of like kind of weirdness. I don't know. It didn't feel like what I had expected from acid. And then I took it a second time in Bozeman one time, and I again had so much nervous energy. I like had to get on my bike, and I rode like 80 miles up into the mountains just because I was like running away from my trip, because I just had so much like anxious, negative energy. So I don't think I've ever taken real acid, but I've taken mushrooms probably like 10 or 12 times, and pretty much always outside in nature. But that's just because I think that mushrooms sort of have that, they've got a lot more of that earthy feel where you really want to connect with the ancient like spirits of the ground.
You sound like way too much a hippie to continue this conversation. No, I absolutely agree. I think there's much more of a grounding feeling doing mushrooms than when you do acid. And I don't know why that is. Obviously, they're different chemical compounds, and mushrooms are growing in the ground. And I'm assuming that these mushrooms come from a long, long, long lineage of being taken, Yeah. It's kind of a weird thing. I mean, for those who don't know, we are more closely related to fungus and mushrooms than we are to plants. So there is
there's a kinship there.
There's a kinship. That's a nice way to put it. And if you haven't done it, I'd recommend that you do. And
I'd recommend that you do with some caveats. I'd make sure that you are feeling good.
Just dive in.
No, I'm all for people using and experimenting with psychedelics, but I think that it's important that people take them really seriously, because it's a powerful experience, and you can really put yourself in some dark places. And I think if you're not ready for that, then I mean, nobody can be really ready once you get thrown into the abyss. But I think you need to do everything you can to try and mitigate that.
What are your other caveats?
Just make sure you're in a pretty good headspace. I would make sure that you got somebody you can reach out to at the very least if things do start going south. I mean, I like to do it by myself, but that's just a personal thing. You can do it however you want. But I guess most of my feelings about it are just personal things that I feel about it based on the experiences I've had. Mostly, I think people should just make sure that they're in a good headspace before they take them. Like, don't, it's not like, you know, it's not like weed, you know, where people, they're like, if you're sad, you can like, oh, I'm going to smoke weed. It's going to improve things for the minute. Like, I'm going to use this just as escapism. I don't think that psychedelics are a good way to try and pursue that like escapism, because I think that you're just going to put yourself in a really negative place. I think that you have to have your life sorted out in some way. You can't have your life in shambles and think that you're going to take mushrooms and be able to run away from it, you know? And I think that's just the important distinction to make.
What about the setting?
I think you should do it. I think you should do it outside, obviously, but I've had good experiences indoors, but I would just make sure you got something to keep your mind busy. Like when I was indoors, if like I would like stare at the wall and like my wall would start to freak me out, you know? When I did it indoors, I had to be doing yoga to keep my mind and body engaged and keep myself in the flow, and it might be a function of doing it in stadium view, which it kind of has like a Truman Show-y feel, because it feels like a staged environment that's been set up for you, and you're just like another one of the hundreds of college kids who are just put in this room, and they're like, all right, we've dealt with this one, we've got his cash, you know, and it's not an environment that makes you feel like an individual or really lets you connect with who you are as a human, because stadium view is such a artificial environment.
Very synthetic.
I feel like, yeah. So I would want to do it someplace like if you at your house, you know, you feel comfortable there. You got a nice cozy couch, you got blankets, you got nice people around. I think you could probably have a really, really good time being indoors. But I just know that in the apartment that I lived in, it was pretty weird. So
for those who may be rejecting what you're saying right now and dismissing you as some sort of lunatic or hippie, or, you know, that doesn't involve me or anything like that, how would you try to explain it so that they might see some benefit in it, or at least look at people who do it and see where they might be finding some benefit? Did that make sense? Some
benefit from the use of
for the use of it, yeah.
For me, the first time I took it, I don't want to say I had an awakening, but it really felt like I kind of realized I escaped from, I felt like I was just caught up in the patterns and like karmic residues of everything. Like I just been pushed forward in my life. You know, I was going to school and everything I was doing was just in reaction to the things that had happened before. And then when I took mushrooms for the first time, I felt like I had kind of cracked into a space beyond myself where I could really look at the things I was doing in my life and saying, is this what you want to be doing? Is this who you really are? Like, and I got the chance to I felt like before that I had been very focused on me, you know, whereas tripping for the first time and being there with my roommate, that was the first time I feel like I'd ever seen another person and recognized their inner humanity. And I was like, oh, there's another me in there. You know, there's somebody who has their own thoughts and feelings and dreams and ups and downs. Whereas I always just see like the imprint, or I felt like I'd always seen just like the imprint before that. And I felt like I was the only person really making conscious decisions, you know, and it just gave me a chance to really reevaluate the things that I was doing, how I viewed the world. It just put me in a totally different headspace to think about things. And I think that can be really, really valuable.
I would definitely agree. And I guess my caveat for use or not use is that, you know, like you said, not every single person should try it, and there's probably their own personal reasons. I know a lot of people that say like, I don't need drugs and I live a fantastic life, and it's like, you know what, maybe that's probably true, you know, and maybe your mind is hardwired for, you know, little dopamine increases in certain things that don't necessarily, you know, alteration. But yeah, for the people that maybe were considering it, I had very dark thoughts about myself. I don't mean depressive or things like that, but for one thing is just, I overcame this thought that I was super unattractive. And I know that's very vain, but when I did a mushroom trip, and it was a couple of years ago, it was probably 2014 or something like that. And I remember just like looking in the mirror and just being in awe of what a beautiful human being that I was, not necessarily like the skin part. But after that, it changed my perspective of myself, and I really stopped caring what I looked like and started caring about how I acted.
Yeah.
And it was a very, I hate that word awakening too, but enlightening or just eye-opening experience, and so I think that some people that, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are listening to this that are like, yeah, we know, buddy. We've done all that stuff before. But and I also think that people who are close to death should also do it, because one of the things that I used to be really scared about was, what happens after you die. And after doing countless trips, I'm like, I don't really care. It doesn't really matter anymore what happens, and it also gives you some gratitude for the life that you're living. Yeah, but for me, I think
on some level you experience some levels of death when you do take these deep psychedelic trips. There are parts of yourself that are probably going to die once you get to a certain level. And I think that it's like a letting go that happens.
Absolutely.
And I think that makes you a lot freer to accept things like death and potentially embracing what could come next,
It's like an ego death as well, because then you get out of it and you're like, man, did I even need to worry about that? I said that to that person, and it's like, man, was that really me saying that, or was I just trying to defend the identity that I had of myself?
Yeah.
And they jeopardized that, so I got all mad and offensive or defensive, and so I think there's a lot of benefit to that, of just like calming yourself down. And I think especially near the end of my life, I'm definitely going to kind of experiment with that again to kind of help me break down the ideas of reality. Because for those who have not done it, what you think is real and what you're seeing with your own eyes is like, your brain is having a hard time computing. And this is how I described it the first time I ever did it, is it's not that you are going crazy. Everything around you is going crazy. You're fine.
Yeah.
But you're just looking at a world that's going bananas.
You're just realizing how crazy the world you live in is as well.
Yeah, because
you sort of lose you kind of forget about the framework which you already view everything through, and everything kind of becomes new, and you're like, oh wow, that's very strange. Like the most banal, mundane things become, oh wow, and you really have to rethink what it is. I remember I went to the supermarket on mushrooms one time. I remember standing in the supermarket, seeing all these people swirling around me, and just like, wow, like everybody's so caught up in getting their milk. Nobody's looking at each other. And because like I forgot why I was at the supermarket. Number one, I forgot what a supermarket was, but which maybe is a little bit less useful of an experience, but that's just an example of how it makes you look at everything completely differently.
It's a very nostalgic feeling too, because I always think of it as like when you're a child and you look at everything so new and it's so exciting, and you hear these grown-ups talking about stuff, and so you're trying to formulate in your mind what it means, but you don't actually know. It brings you back to that time where you can look at your toaster and just giggle at how ridiculous it is, or usually you're out in the forest, or you should be, and you look at a tree and you're like, what an incredible
you're like,
living being.
Like, wow, trees are physical manifestations of time.
Yeah. And you think about like the water moving up through the trunk and then out into the leaves, and it's doing a process on its own without any human intervention. And it's been doing that for millennia. It's like, what an incredible thing, and you really that's why nature is great, because some appreciation. Circling back to the Appalachian Trail, if I can, real quick.
Yeah, of course.
Some people know this story, but they don't know the main point of this story. So I had done some acid, and it was me and my girlfriend Lauren, and we were hiking, and we were in Shenandoah National Park, and we decided, well, this is maybe where you could have done it when you're on the Tahoe Trail, because it gives you unbelievable amounts of energy. And so we were hustling, and we hiked way too late, so it started getting dark. And so we needed a camp, but there were no campsites anywhere around us. And not that there were any like campsites with a fire ring. It was just, we were in such a rocky place, we couldn't set up the tent anywhere. So finally we pulled off, and the Appalachian Trail is marked by white blazes, if you don't know. So it's just like a white little paint mark every 150 feet on a tree, or a rock or something, so you know you're on this right trail. Every now and again, there's a blue blaze that diverts to another direction. So we took that blue blaze trail, and lo and behold, there was just a beautiful open prairie, and it was twilight. So there was still some light in the sky. There was 2 deer, and they were just kind of making their way across this meadow. And it was really cool because it looked like a picnic area. There were picnic tables, and there was even a restroom. This is a national park, but it hadn't been mowed like the whole summer. So it was just this super tall grass, and it was just amazing. So we set up our tent, and we cooked our meal, and we never ate in our tent. And this is just the one night that it was the no-see-ums, which are small little tiny bugs that just rip your flesh so much worse than mosquitoes. Coming from Minnesota, where the mosquito is a state bird. So just tearing our flesh. So we were like, okay, let's just eat it in. I had already thrown the rope up into a tree, beautiful overhanging oak. And it was like, we're just going to eat this and cram. So we're giggling and we're having a good time, and we're, kind of tripping. And all of a sudden we hear this scratching sound. And I'm like, what is that? But you have like a supersonic hearing.
Yeah.
So like, what the hell is that? So I poked my head out of the tent with my headlamp on, and I saw 2 little eyes in the tree. And I was like, oh, there's a bear in the tree. But I thought it was a raccoon. I don't know why I said bear. So I was like, oh, there's a bear in the tree. And Lauren looks at me and she's like, what? And I was like, oh God. I look back out again, and there's a bear in the tree, and it's like 50 to 70 feet away in this like oak tree, and it's just staring at us. And so now, I mean, I'm having pretty intense visuals. Like we just finished peaking, so like, I'm still really right in it. So all of a sudden the bear's eyes keep moving, and they're like getting larger and smaller and moving the side of the head and coming back in. I was like, oh God. And it just slunk down the tree, and it scratched its way down. I'll never forget that sound of scratching. And it was like Baloo from the Jungle Book. It was just like bloop, came down on the ground, but that grass was so high that as soon as it hit the ground, it was
disappeared.
Gone. And I was like, okay. Get all the food. So my headlamp was already starting to dim. So I was like, give me your headlamp. So, and now it's dark. So I have Lauren's headlamp on mine and my head. And every now and again, I can see the little eye shine through the grass. And I'm like, get all the food, gather all the food. We're going to like get it in the tree, we're going to and get a knife. And she's in complete darkness, like frantically scattering, but she had like memorized where all her stuff was in her bag. So she was like getting it. And I was like, get up, get out of the tent. So the bear starts coming at us, and he's doing like this like jaw clapping thing, which they do. That's like this. And it's like, they're really fucking angry when they're doing that. So and I'm going, hey. And like, I've had experience with way bigger animals in my lifetime. And so I was thinking, all of that training is coming in handy when you see a big animal and they come at you, and they're coming at you, not just like looking at you from afar. You get aggressive, you get aggressive. So I start screaming, I'm swinging my tent pole at it and all this kind of stuff. And it's running back and forth, and it keeps coming close, and I'll yell at it, and I'll kind of back up just a little bit. And I'm really freaking out and exhilarating also, because I'm tripping.
But at this point, you've got to have so much adrenaline going.
So much adrenaline is going, but it's still I cannot size the bear. So I'm like, I don't know if this is a 1-year-old cub that's just curious, or like a 400-pound boar. Just like, I cannot tell, because its body shape is not.
You can't see it.
Well, also, my visual, it keeps expanding and retracting, so I have no idea how big this animal is, so he starts like making all these sounds and running back and forth. So we get and I'm like, we're just gonna ditch the tent, we're just gonna take the food. And there was that bathroom, and I was thinking, okay, we'll just throw the food in the bathroom, we'll hide in the bathroom and lock the door. So of course, for some reason or another, the bathroom is not a pull door, it's a push door.
Oh, great.
So like, even if we got in there, we'd have to hold up against a bear, and there's no lock on the door. So I'm just like, good God. So we chuck the food in there.
It's a pit toilet. You just get inside the pit toilet.
So weird. They were actually like nice bathrooms. So, but this place had been abandoned and no people were there. So this bear has now circled our tent. We backed up and we're down by the thing, and I'm still screaming at the bear circling at the tent, and he comes up on a tree and claws up on the tree and just stares at me. I'm thinking, fuck, I'm in my underwear, you know, I'm holding a bag of food and there's a bear right by my tent. I'm thinking he's going to go through the tent. We're going to have no place to see. At the same time, I'm getting torn apart by mosquitoes and no-see-ums. And off in the distance, we heard some other hikers, and they had some like music as they were hiking because they were night hiking. And we started screaming for them to come, screaming. And they finally were like, you know, thought we were dying, which, you know, may have happened in the future. And they were like, whoa, you guys look intense. I was like, there's a bear at the tent. There's about 8 of us now. And I was like, we're just going to charge the tent. And I didn't, you know, we're like, whoa, let's do it. So we started screaming and ran at the tent. And by that time, the bear had like kind of run off into the distance. So we chased the bear out of town. But then I was thinking, these guys need to stay because there's no way I'm just going to get back in this tent and go to sleep. That bear's going to come back.
The bear's going to come back with his friends.
Bear's going to come. Yeah, right. He's going to be screaming and yelling at me. So I convinced all these kids to camp out in this area. And the next morning, the ranger came and was like, this is a picnic area. You can't camp here. Like, you're going to get a fine unless you leave right now. I was like, oh, we'll be leaving. Trust me. So one caveat, if you're going to be doing psychedelics, make sure there's no bears anywhere in the area.
Or carry bear spray.
Yeah, that was too heavy for a hiker. I also just wouldn't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
You know, that's just one thing I wouldn't want to deal with.
That's such a unbelievable story.
I promise you it's true. I have another, you know, Lauren was there. She can vouch for me.
I can't even imagine having to shout down a bear while on psychedelics, because living in Tahoe, bears are a pretty common occurrence. Like, I've had bears in my garage, I've had bears under my deck, and you just go out and yell at them. You're just like, get out of here.
Really?
You know, and they're always scared of you. And you, like, I'm not scared of the bears that we'd get in town, but when it's dark,
yeah,
you're tripping.
You're in your underwear.
You're in your underwear. You got a bag of food in your hand. Because like when we did the Tahoe Rim Trail, we didn't hang our food up any night. I used my food bag as a pillow because I just figured like, oh, if a bear comes,
he's going to eat your head.
I'm just going to yell at it and it's going to run away. Like the bears in the Sierras they're so timid. Mm-hmm. They're so timid. As long as you're not messing with
this was a food conditioned bear. So because it was a picnic area, this bear would come every single night and raid the garbage cans.
Oh.
And here's another thing is people will feed the bears out their window to get a good picture. So here's another thing. This is me as a conservationist. As cute as they are and as much as you really want that National Geographic shot, don't ever feed animals. And not just bears, mice, you know, will come in. Now all of a sudden mice are food conditioned. You know, any sort of animal that eats, you know, not strictly meat, skunks, everything. Some guy got skunked because he had a bag in his tent and the skunk was coming for it, and then he kicked the skunk to get it out and it sprayed him. So that's just one thing. Just don't ever feed the animals. They don't need it. They will find their own food.
And you're putting yourself in a really dangerous position.
Putting other people as well in a very risky situation. And even though I made a very bad mistake by camping in a picnic area, which is not allowed in national parks, especially in the Shenandoah, that's still something that, you know, you just shouldn't do. So, but I didn't know that the bears there in Tahoe were super scared. I figured they would have been like wilderness bears, you know.
Tahoe's a pretty big tourist area, so a lot of there's a lot of people on the trails. Desolation Wilderness is one of the most used wilderness areas in the United States.
That sounds ironic.
We would always call it Destination Wilderness.
Oh, nice.
Desolation Wilderness. And that was the shame when we did the Rim Trail, was for the whole first like 5/6 of the trail, we didn't really see anybody, and the people that we did see were just rim trail hikers. Mm-hmm. But then the second you cross that border into Desolation Wilderness, you're seeing hikers every like 2-3 minutes, and it's just like,
that's a pain.
But it's the most beautiful section of trail, because Desolation Wilderness is definitely a really, really beautiful area. It's just glacial granite. There's so many alpine lakes. There's like 10 or 12 alpine lakes within a like 6-mile circle you could draw, and you can just hop from lake to lake to lake to lake, and they're all great swimming lakes. They're super clear. It's definitely beautiful, but how many people you got to deal with kind of ruins the experience a little bit.
Is it exposed wilderness or is it timber or what is the landscape like up there?
What do you mean exposed wilderness? It's just straight granite.
Yeah, so there's no trees.
That's
what I mean.
There are no trees
That's
pretty
what I
much in desolation wilderness.
So you get a lot of views.
Yeah. And if you're getting up high on some of those peaks, like if you're up on like Pyramid Peak's the highest peak in the basin, I'm pretty sure. Pyramid Peak has a really, really amazing view, especially because you look down on desolation and instead of seeing a blanket of trees, you see every little crag and crack and change in topography. Trees kind of have that smoothing effect when you look at them from a distance.
For sure.
But you don't get any of that. Everything looks so aggressive when you just see raw glacial granite. It's definitely beautiful. And when you're up there, you don't see all the people, which makes the views from the tops are nice. But once you're at the lake, you see like 15 people swimming. You got tents all around the lake, and it's just like, oh, this is like I'd rather be out. You know,
there would be nowhere to hang a bear bag anyway.
Yeah, no, that is true. But for the rest of the trail, we weren't hanging bear bags when we were in the forest, just because not worried about it. But yeah, the bears in Tahoe are so used to tourists, and then we've got things like the Kokanee Salmon Festival, which is coming up probably within the next couple weeks. That's when the bears really come out in force, because we've got thousands of Kokanee salmon spawning in the rivers, and the bears they see it as a great opportunity to fatten themselves up before winter. But that's also when tons and tons of people are coming up from the Bay Area to see the Kokanee salmon run, and they see the bears, and people will get like 5-6 feet away from the bears to try and get these like National Geographic photos of it, like reaching and getting these fish. But the bears in Tahoe, they're used to it, and they're probably not going to do anything. But regardless, you need to treat that animal you need to respect it for what it is. Like if they could see the claws and the teeth on that thing, I don't think they'd want to be getting within 6 feet of it. And it's a different story when you're walking up on a bear that's feeding and it's trying to fend for itself than when a bear is in your territory and it kind of knows that it's not where it's supposed to be. You know, like when a bear is like sleeping under your deck, it knows that that's not a natural environment. It knows that this is artificial because it knows what a den looks like. It knows what the forest looks like, you know? And so when it sees you come out and you're yelling at it and you got some like ski poles and you're waving, it knows that it needs to get out of there, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's when you're on the bear's territory, you need to respect the bear as a wild animal for sure.
Have you ever seen a grizzly here?
I've never seen a grizzly
in your life. Not in a zoo.
I've never even seen a grizzly in a zoo. I can't even imagine what a grizzly bear looks like. I know they look much more aggressive than the little brown bears we've got in California.
Wow. Yeah, I've never seen one in the wild either, but I've seen them in zoos.
That's sad.
Zoos there's some good zoos for sure, but they don't have they're very fat. All those animals are fat because they're not moving. You know what I'm saying? And
they don't have the like wild look in their eyes, you know?
They don't. They're getting food conditioned just like that other bear. But there are some pretty good zoos. The Minnesota Zoo that I'm at, they were the first zoo to put animals together in their, not together, but adjacent to each other or next to each other in cages that more represented the climate areas that they came from, rather than like, oh, you got the tiger next to the lion next to the jaguar.
Yeah,
right.
You've got the reptile house and you've got the big cat area, right, and it doesn't make any sense.
Which makes those animals, especially cats, very uncomfortable because they're so territorial. So you'll have the tiger exhibit, which is outside, in the snow where they're from, next to the other animals that would represent the Siberian area or something like that. And they do have very large enclosures. And so it's pretty well renowned. And now a lot of zoos are also moving to conservation efforts, where I know in Naples, Florida, there's the Naples Zoo, and they often take the Florida panthers that have been hit by cars that have survived, patch them up, keep them in the zoo for a little while, let people see them, and then re-release them. So I know that not all zoos are bad, but there are some really shitty ones in Russia. I can promise you that.
Yeah,
they don't really have animal rights in Russia.
Yeah, like you've got the whole stereotype of like the Russian bear in the circus,
with a ring through its nose.
Yeah,
and a chain attached to that ring. and tigers jumping through fire hoops. And I mean, that's
Sounds like quite the spectacle. But
definitely. And we used to do that only 20 years ago here. So it's not like we're super innocent to that, but there's a lot of, the whole concept of animal rights is a very, very new idea that I think hasn't been adopted by most of the world.
But I think that, I mean, I'm just going to speak for what I know about Russia. I think that the general ideas of conservation and being ecologically sound, I don't think those ideas have really taken root there yet.
Yeah, there's some documentaries about the last Siberian tigers, and it's pretty sad. They do have some conservation efforts, but they don't get funded. There's just not any interest in that kind of stuff.
What's the threat to the Siberian tiger? Are people hunting the tigers, or is it just habitat destruction? What?
Mostly any animal is going to face extinction through habitat loss. More specifically, fragmentation of their habitats. And for people that don't know what that means, is when you build a highway through the Masai Mara, where the migrations happen with the zebra and the wildebeest in Africa, that's gonna cause a lot of disruption in how they move about the areas. And with the tigers in Russia, it's the timber industries come in, they log a certain area, and it just really inhibits them from utilizing that area. Now they have to travel a very, very far way to the next strand of timber to go and hunt, and then they have to travel all the way back to their den. And in that process, sometimes they get hunted, or they can't find their food, or it's usually habitat loss. The more developed the nation becomes, the more they have interest in protecting the wilderness that they destroyed to get to become so developed.
Yeah.
So Russia may turn a corner and get there. They also have the Amur leopard, which is an extremely rare big cat. It's very unfortunate that some of these animals are probably not going to make it with us in the next 10 years or 15 years. But, they were saying that tigers weren't going to make it into the 21st century, and they did. And now they're slowly rebounding, very, very slowly, but they are rebounding. But it's only because people decided to designate land for those animals.
Right.
So, yeah.
Either you keep the land available for them, or you let the animal go through the process of adapting to our urban environment. And I don't think we really want to have tigers adapting to the urban environment.
Have you seen the new Planet Earth?
I haven't seen the new Planet Earth.
You got to watch the last episode.
I saw one episode of Planet Earth. I think it was Planet Earth 2, where they were talking about the sea turtles in China. And I remember they had all these little baby sea turtles, and they were confused by the lights of the city. And so instead of going out into the ocean following the stars, they turned the opposite direction and walked or waddled out into the street, and they'd get caught in storm drains and hit by cars. And that was one of the saddest things that I've ever seen on film, was seeing just like 15 little baby sea turtles at the bottom of a storm drain, just on their
flopping
backs.
because they're upside down, and pretty terrible. But on the flip side of that, in India, the episode is about how leopards live in Mumbai, in Calcutta, in these cities, because they've adapted to just eating wild stray dogs and stray pigs, and those are animals that, like, the leopard will be the last wild animal because that thing can adapt to anything. But bigger animals like elephants that require so much space and they're so sensitive, they do not do well with the new adaptations. So it's interesting to see what animals we're going to bring into this new century, and which animals are going to fight to bring themselves. Like the pigeons and the raccoons and barn owls and bats, or some bats. They're going to adapt because they're very flexible. Coyotes is another really good example. Coyotes used to only live in the Southwest. Now they're in every major city in the lower 48. There are over 1,000 coyotes in the city of Chicago. So they're very adaptable. They're very flexible, and the plasticity of those animals allows them to improve their ranges and find opportunities where other animals, they just won't. You can't have grizzly bears in the city. Yeah. They're very private animals. They don't really want humans around. So
also, I think it's these large animals that need so much territory in order to feed themselves, That a grizzly bear's not going to be able to get enough food to sustain itself if it's living in an urban environment.
Absolutely.
I mean, I guess if it adapts like our bears in Tahoe have to eating garbage, then maybe. But
right. Yeah, probably not the grizzly bear, but it looks like
why don't we just get rid of municipal trash services and just have the bears do our work for us?
it's probably a good point. Do you have those big? When you lived in Los Angeles, did you see those gang raccoons?
No, I never had any raccoon experiences.
Oh my goodness,
in Los
there are
Angeles.
some really gnarly blood and crip raccoons down in the LA area. They're huge.
Little trash bastards.
They are scary. They are really scary. There was one.
A raccoon will mess you up. A raccoon will not hesitate to tear your eyes out.
I swear to
and
God.
eat them.
I used to live in West Hollywood, and there was a gang of raccoons. A gang of raccoons.
West Hollywood.
I did. I lived in West Hollywood. I lived in the really nice
I can
area.
hear in your voice.
Yeah, can you?
You got the West Hollywood affectation.
I do, yeah.
Right.
But there's a gang, and a gang of raccoons is what a group of raccoons is called. I wasn't trying to make any, connotations to anything other than the blood and crip reference. But there was a raccoon. Then they'd always. So I had a big fountain outside my house, and I worked at Petco, so I'd always stock it with feeder goldfish because I just thought it was cool that there were goldfish in my little mini koi pond, for 25 cents a fish. And these raccoons would come and they would eat all my fish. And there was one raccoon without a hand. It only had three, and it didn't have a front hand. And
Lefty.
it would always kind of waddle off. And I looked at it once, and he looked at me, he said, "What the fuck are you looking at?" I went back inside. I was so scared. So yeah.
Yeah, Los Angeles is a bad place.
Yeah. Do you live there for a year or 6 months?
6 months about.
Mm-hmm.
And enough.
Mm-hmm. Did you enjoy anything about Los Angeles?
I lived in Manhattan Beach, which, like you, living in West Hollywood, was a very nice area. I lived only a block away from the ocean, so if I wasn't at work or in class, I was out at the beach. I was swimming, or I was riding my bike on the Strand. Like I really enjoyed the beach life. I really liked getting to just veg, hang out on the beach, and also there were so many dispensaries in Los Angeles. So at that time of my life, for me, this was when I was like first discovering dabs.
How old were you?
I had to be 18. I had just turned 18.
Did you have a medical card? Is that how you got to do it?
Yeah. But yeah, so I liked obviously the like California culture of like smoke a little ganj,
Yeah.
I also had a Whole Foods right next to where I lived, and I was working as a server, so I just had endless amounts of disposable cash on hand every day, because it was just like, as long as I don't spend more than $120 today, I'm still coming out ahead.
Right.
So I liked eating at Whole Foods every day, getting my Mary's chicken sandwich from there.
Yes.
And I like the availability of whatever you want in Los Angeles. If you want, I was like, I've never gone in a float tank. I wonder if I could do that. Yes.
Yeah.
I've never done Pilates. Can I do that? Yes. Like anything. If you want to try it, there's a place you can go do it in Los Angeles, And so that's fun. Also, like the availability of ethnic cuisines, getting to try new foods. I think Los Angeles it's definitely one of the best food cities in America. I think there's great food in Los Angeles. But
Taco trucks are fantastic.
yeah, you can't get away from the Mexican food of California. That's one of the big detractors to living in Bozeman is we don't have that good Mexican food here.
No.
And that's the only I miss about Los Angeles for sure.
Is the food? Or
Yeah, I miss-
specifically the Mexican food?
Specifically the Mexican food, because I think we've got good food in general, but we just don't have good authentic Mexican food here. Like I would kill for a good carne asada taco or like a chile relleno. Like fuck, man. Like my mouth waters so much. Like every time I get back to California, that's the first thing I do is I go to Margaritas in Tahoe, go get myself a chile relleno. 'Cause that's like, fuck, man.
Whoa.
I'm like dying thinking about it.
But you're not going to live there again.
And not in Los Angeles. May live in Tahoe if I get really lucky, but who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, so Los Angeles had some good things, but mostly it was just soul crushing for me. I didn't like that like anytime that I would see a tree or a plant, it had been put there by somebody. It was planned. Nature wasn't allowed to run its course anywhere except for the little pieces of grass that would pop up between the sidewalks, you know? And you'd be like, that's beautiful right there. Nature's reclaiming this sidewalk. Like 15 more years, little guy, and you'll own this sidewalk, you know? But I don't know, not my place. I mean, living in Los Angeles or in Manhattan Beach, I also really liked oogling all the really expensive cars. I really liked getting to walk down the street and just be like, oh, there's an F40 right there. It's pretty or not F40, but like a F450, you know, like, or seeing Maseratis all the time. Like
Every other car.
Yeah, it's like
Especially on like Hollywood Boulevard or Santa Monica, or I mean, what am I thinking? Santa Monica Boulevard?
Yeah.
Down in Hollywood. Is that one of them?
Like, I don't know, you got like Sunset. There's lots of big
Sunset,
streets.
that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
For me, the big street that people would go cruising on was Sepulveda. You'd see lots of really nice cars.
For sure.
Because Sepulveda just runs right by the beach, and it goes like Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, then it gets into like Palos Verdes. And like if you do that drive out to Palos Verdes, you're just seeing like most of the cars are over $100,000 when you're driving, you know? So that was a really fun bike ride. Like I'd love to go do that road ride and oogle all the expensive cars. But I'd rather oogle at nice, unique native plants than oogle at a Maserati. You know, I can see that online, but
Yeah, there is something kind of spectacular about seeing those in person, though, especially because they were just waxed up earlier that day.
yeah,
There is. I do get you on that, and I'm not even a car guy. I couldn't tell you. You know,
it makes you feel. It just makes you feel good, kind of being in the same place as these people who are like upper class. It makes you feel like upper class by association, even though I've only got like $70 in my wallet or to my name.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
I still like, I'm living in Manhattan Beach. I'm doing okay, you know. Like,
Yeah,
like it feels good being around that, but not for a long period of time. Not for me.
I can understand that for sure. That would be the same thing, except when I worked at Petco, I'd have my little Petco uniform on, and then those really rich guys would come in and get 8 bags of dog food for their 9 pit bulls.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel so rich at that point. They're like, can you carry this out, boy? Okay, sure. Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really liked my job that I had there too. I was working at a restaurant. I was working at Manhattan House, which is a little like yuppie. It was farm to table in Manhattan Beach. All the vegetables were grown in a greenhouse just down Sepulveda. So the prices were just exorbitant. It was just ridiculous. I remember we had a spring salad that we did where it was like 3 or 4 pieces of butter lettuce, like half a slice of avocado, and then like a squash blossom with a lemon vinaigrette.
Whoa.
And it was a $15 salad.
Yeah, well, that makes sense too.
But it's just, but we served a lot of celebrities there. Like I got to serve Zooey Deschanel, I served Annie Milonakis, I served Vince Vaughn.
Nice. Yep.
Yeah, so like it was cool getting to see celebrities, especially like that's the highlight of living in Los Angeles for me, was getting to look Zooey Deschanel in the eyes, because Zooey Deschanel, I've always had such a huge crush on Zooey Deschanel. Like since I saw Yes Man for the first time, I remember being like, no,
Is that the new girl?
yeah,
Girl?
the one with the big doe eyes. You know?
No, I know who you're talking about.
There's a lot of eye to look.
There's
into.
a lot of eye. Yep. Most of her face is actually eye. You know.
Yeah, I heard they used to call her Polyphemus in high school.
Is that what they did?
Yeah, because so much eye.
Yeah, I followed it.
Polyphemus,
Mhm.
yeah, okay.
No.
But yeah, and so not Polyphemus. Zooey Deschanel.
Is that what you just called her?
Zooey Deschanel was always like a dream celebrity. I was like, I'm never gonna get to meet Zooey Deschanel. You know, it was like Lana Del Rey and Zooey Deschanel were like the two like celebrities that I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could just meet them. I wish I could like shake their hand, just like know that they're real people, you know. And I remember walking out to the table, be like, oh my god.
Did you actually meet her, or did you just look at her from 4 feet away?
No, I served her Manhattan House burger. Mm-hmm. I dropped it down and said, enjoy your meal.
Wow, she was probably starstruck herself.
Yeah, I know. But it was just that was a highlight for me for sure.
So let's say you ventured up into this upper class. Let's say you were handed a couple $1 million or a celebrity status.
Just waiting for MSU to give me this payout.
There you go. That's it. So let's say you get that payout. What are you going to do with that money? You going to buy some fancy cars and drive around Sepulveda Boulevard or what?
That's not really my idea of what I would want to do with money. I was fun looking at the cars, but I'm not a huge car guy. You know, if I got a ton of cash, like I'd be dropping it on a fat van that I could go adventure in. You know, I'd get myself some property. I'd get myself some guns. Like,
Yeah. So now you still have $9.5 million left. What are you going to do with it?
I don't think you understand how many guns I'm trying to buy.
Okay. You're getting an arsenal.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that. Yeah. You could even buy the football team, the Arsenal, just to say that you have one.
All right. You can buy a lot of land. Like for me, land is the big, like if I've got money to sink into something, it's going to be land. Land is, because I think land, number one, is always going to be valuable. And I think that it's something that has real value. Not like if I buy a car and I've got show off value and I've got the fun that I can have on it. But land is something that I can always come back to and can potentially give me life. If I lose everything, but I've still got that land, I've got the potential that I can make something for myself just with what I've got there, you know?
And you mean food.
Yeah, food.
That's what you mean
And
by make
a place
things, right?
and a place to live.
You could do your 30 days of naturalization on your land.
Yeah. 30 days of earthing. Just laying out there.
Is that where you walk around without your shoes on?
No, earthing is just when you just lay down on the ground and just experience the vibration of the planet and the feeling of the wind, you know?
That sounds hippy dippy.
I love hippy dippy stuff so much, Beau.
Yeah, but don't you think there's some science to that? To earthing?
Probably.
Not to hippy dippy. There's no science to that for sure. We figured that out, but there's like negatively, positively charged ions from the sun in the grass.
You're saying this is science? This sounds pretty hippy dippy.
That does sound hippy dippy. That's almost as hippy dippy as astrology.
But I love it.
I know, and that was my next question. How can you reconcile being a scientist and still believe in astrology? Go.
I think
For everyone who's listening, Kellen is a Scorpio. We're about to hear what he says.
I think that stars have gravitational pulls associated with them, and I think that as these stars move across the sky during our periods of development, I think we experience small amounts of gravitational pull on our organs and our brains as they unfold and our nerve cells. I think that there's the potential that maybe this greater gravitational system has more of an effect on us than we would want to give it credit to. Or I think that there's the potential that there's something going on outside of what we can currently scientifically observe. Because I do think that all things are generally connected in some way. And I think that that connection comes from outside of our dimension, potentially. I just have this feeling that there's this greater connectedness and purpose to everything. And I think that I don't know if the stars are what's causing it, or if the stars are a manifestation of this greater process that's playing out in our universe. And I think that
You don't know. You don't know what you think. That's right.
I don't know what I think, but I think it's kind of fun. I found I found my the first time I read my star chart, I thought it was very very on point.
Yeah.
But I don't have any direct proof
Right.
that astrology is real.
I don't think anybody does.
But I love it.
It's one of those kind of ethereal things that you just have to have blind faith in.
Yeah.
And I'm on the same side of the fence with you on that, speaking as a Taurus here, where I cannot find, other than the gravitational thing, maybe on a developing fetus, the moon is strong enough to pull the ocean and maybe pull some way in other than that, I really have no science to back anything up. However, I just over and over and over see all of these things that would be kind of, that are so similar, or patterns or things like that. And it also may be my brain looking for that stuff.
Right.
I'm pretty sure Neil deGrasse Tyson debunked the whole moon pulls on the ocean thing, so I can't really say that. However, funny story, when I lived in Africa, I probably told you this like 6 times now, but I had a good friend named Willem, and he
Was this the guy you ate pig bones with?
No, that was a different guy. That was a Nepalese guy. This guy, he was the head mechanic and probably just like construction guy, whatever, at the lodge that I worked at. And he was a Scorpio too. And he had almost the same birthday as you, end of October. Mm-hmm. And you guys are so alike. And it's not just you look alike or anything, which you do.
That's weird.
It's just that your temperament and your way of processing thoughts and all that kind of stuff, very, very similar to what I've experienced before. So,
and I think that astrology it's not I don't want to say it's an ancient science, but it's something that's preoccupied the human mind for a really long time. And whatever it is that causes these patterns, people have been able to recognize them. And I think that whether or not we explain them at these moments, I don't think it really matters as long as it's still working and holding to be true.
Mm-hmm. And I think some of the arguments are people like, okay, well then why isn't every Scorpio the same? It's like, well, are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Well,
are you a guy or a girl?
What's your moon sign?
Yeah, exactly. There's all
what's your rising sign?
My moon. Let's see.
Where's your Lilith?
What's that one?
Lilith is, I think it's a star or something.
Is that so? I'm a Taurus rising, Leo, moon in Leo. That's what I am.
You're a Taurus sun.
Sun, yep.
And then your moon is a Leo.
Mm-hmm.
And then
my rising is also Leo.
Also a Leo.
Mm-hmm. I have a lot of fire in me.
I'm also a Leo moon.
We just lost like 7 listeners. They just turned us off. They're like, you guys kind of had me with your acid story, but now I'm out. What is your rising?
Virgo rising.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I can see it. You're a total prick.
All right. With that, do we probably lost. Call it a podcast.
Yeah, that's a wrap. Do you have any closing thoughts?
If you don't want to hear us talk about astrology and other ethereal things,
don't listen.
Don't tune into podcasts or the Transplants podcast #AfterDark.
Yes, that's where this is going to happen.
This is where it's going to get weird. For
when
sure.
the candles are lit, the weird shit comes out.
Yeah, I believe that for sure.
That's probably something I'm going to end on. I don't need to say any more after that, but thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next week.